Hi, I'm Woody and welcome to Woody Minis. Let's get started with kitbashing these Custodes Warden into some possessed Woodstodes. After we start getting everything ready, I looked through the instructions and noticed my first problem. These are some very statically posed miniatures. They all look like they're just standing around waiting for something to happen, and that's not really what I want to do here. After snipping it out of the sprue, I began cleaning away all the little burrs and mold lines. To make them more posable, I also clipped off these shoulder joint, tassels, tabs that really keep them locked in place. It doesn't take too much, just a little trim with a hobby knife. After that, it's time to get the Tamiya extra thin and assemble them up to this stage. Now, you might be wondering why didn't I add these little hip guards, and that's just because we don't really need them for this build, and speed is of the essence. Let's start making these guys look super possessed and scary. The most important thing with possessed marines and custodians is the head. So I started off by trimming away the neck joint to get a nice smooth surface which would help guide a drill bit later. I scored in a small hole so that the drill wouldn't slip and hit my fingers because we're going to be coring this out. You need to make sure that you get the right size drill bit. It should be the same size as a neck joint and big enough that you can fit a sprue clipper inside, because we're going to be absolutely destroying this in a second. Now that it's deep enough, almost to the top of the helmet, we can stick in the sprue clipper and just snip, 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 rip and tear until it is done. We want jagged edges here, so it's not really important to be too neat. Once we're satisfied with the damage, we can get out the Citadel skull set and choose something that we like. This little fella looks pretty handsome, so let's do the same thing. We're going to cut him down to size so that he matches up with the gap that we've made in the helmet. After that, we mix up a little bit of green stuff and put that into the helmet, which will keep the skull in place. It's nice and sticky, nice and tacky, and we can just manipulate the face around with these little tweezers. Once it's all in the right place, I'm just going to use this little needle sculpting tool to sculpt the green stuff into flames. Nothing says possessed like being on fire. It's time to work on the other helmets now. I don't want them all to look the same. They've got to be different, their own little flavour of crazy. I've chosen a more damaged skull for this bit, and I've just put it onto a ball of green stuff inside the custodian helmet. After that, we're going to reposition it again with the sculpting tool so that it's looking in the direction his feet are facing. With this done, we can work on sculpting it. And to do that, we need to dip our tweezers into some Vaseline to stop it sticking too much to the green stuff. I want flames, so I'm just using the classic pinch and pull technique, which creates really easy flames, great for beginners like me. After that, I'm just going to stick this on top, but because I'd foolishly already primed that skull, plastic glue won't work. We need to use the super glue for this. Now the bond isn't too firm yet, so I'm just going to use some Tamiya extra thin on the back to give it 2 places it can be stuck in place, much more secure. Now for some more helmets. Let's look. We like these scary little branch wraiths. They look great, screaming, angry, shouting, and they're kind of the right size. However, if I'd stick it on just like this, it would look like a horse, way too long. Back to the destruction and the clipping. After checking a few times to see if it fits, it did, and then I added some green stuff onto the ruined faceplate. It's a simple matter to stick on the helmet now, but there is a bit of a mess to clean up with a soft tip sculpting tool. I just used it to gently blend the green stuff onto the helmet, in the shape of some wood, roots, plants, or just a bit of warpy mess. It was important for me to get all the bits behind the nooks and crannies too, so that the model would look good viewed from any angle. With all the helmets done, I then moved on to the weapons. Custodian wardens can choose from 2, axes or spears. Spears is usually the go-to. It's got better AP, and to be honest, in my opinion, it just looks a bit cooler. The weapons come in 2 parts. One is the head of that guardian spear or axe, and the other one is the hand and arm itself attached to the staff. I trimmed off all the little spikes because I seem to just break them anyway, and then proceeded to dismantle the weapons with a couple of quick cuts from the trusty sprue clippers. And I absolutely adore these weapons from the Sylvaneth range. They're from the Colonel Hunters set, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, but they all look like giant, deadly, leafy blades, and they are just absolutely gorgeous. We only really need the tip here. I started off by laying down the head of the weapon onto my cutting mat and lining it up with the blade. I then made a simple cut, and then trimmed it down to size so that I could stick it underneath the weapon tip. I mean, it does attach to the magazine, but I figure with some warpy shenanigans, they don't really need to reload anyway, right? I assembled all of the spears and the staffs together, and then was ready to work on the Vexilla. Custodian Wardens can take this as a war gear option for free to improve their objective control, but this one looks a bit too imperial for me, so we need to make it a bit more cursed. And this is what we're going to use, the head of a tree lord. I trimmed off the top of the staff above the hand, cleaned it up a bit, and then began drilling a hole through. The connection points are not that great, and it's quite a heavy piece. By just using a simple bit of brass wire and drilling a couple of holes, I was able to attach it really easily. With the Vexilla done, it was time to start assembling all these bits and pieces together. Just using a bit of glue, making sure the poses looked good and that they matched where the heads were facing. To add a little bit more flavour to my miniatures, I'll be doing something else extra. But now it's time to add a little mascot to the squad. This beautiful little owl that I found in the Sylvaneth box. It really shows that my warriors are not just mindless killing machines, they can make friends too. Yes, we're onto the painting stage, and I just primed it black and gave it a white zenithal highlight from above using rattle cans. My paint scheme is super simple: green, green, and a bit of brown and red. We start off by adding loads of contrast scorpion green all over the miniature, getting into every nook and cranny until he glows like a Halloween green apple. After that, to add a bit of contrast and a bit of colour variation, as well as some depth, we use Beeltang green shade. Again, we go over everything, but this time we pay special attention to make sure that the green goes into all the recesses, especially those underneath the arms and anywhere that might be in a bit of a shadow. Finally, we do the exact same thing with Agrac's Earthshade. The dark brown is nice and it adds a bit more colour variation to it. Not too much to distract from the fact I want them really green, but enough. It's now time to work on some details, and I use Skeleton Horde to paint the Vexilla. Later I'll add a bit of green contrast to it, but for now it's time to work on the gems, and they need to be red, the opposite of green, something that really stands out on small pieces. I start by mixing together some Dryad Brown and Mephiston Red, and base coat all of these lovely gems in a dark browny red colour. After that, I take some pure red and apply it in a crescent shape to the bottom of the gems. We then switch on to white to add a specular highlight on the top and a smaller white crescent on the bottom. We go over this white crescent with a bit of yellow to give the illusion of light passing through the gem and being reflected off the top. Easy peasy. We also want more glowing bits, especially the eyes and mouth, something to call attention to the head in an otherwise monochromatic scheme. The weapons need to glow too, of course. And we use a fluorescent green for the weapons. There are some more small details to paint, especially this owl. I used yellow and brown mixed together to give it a bit of a warm tone, and then added some more details to it. I gave it a little crest using some creamy white colour. I then switched over to a darker brown to add some patterns to the tips of its feathers. The eyes wanted to link in with the rest of the model, showing that he's not just a normal owl, something linked to my Woodstodes lore. Of course, striking scorpion contrast green. Almost done, the finishing step for any good Woodstodian warden is a cape. I'm just going to use some PVA glue and a super old brush and get the back of where I want the cape absolutely covered in the stuff. This is tree moss powder, and it is great. It's used for all sorts of model dioramas, and you've probably seen it before. I just take it in pinches, stick it onto where I want the cape, and push and pull and move it around with my fingers until it's in the right shape that I want. Then I fix it in with some very thin super glue. I didn't manage to video that bit. Maybe the fumes got a bit too much for me. To attach some leaves to the vexilla, I'm just using super glue because there's not really enough contact area here for the tree moss powder to stay on by itself. And yes, I did glue some to my fingers a few times, but I edited that out. The privilege of being on YouTube, I guess. And of course they need bases, and that is really simple. We just add grass tufts until we're happy with it. Now they're at home in a nice forest, and it's time for a grand reveal. And here we are, my Woodstodians are finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you like what you see, consider liking and subscribing or checking out some of my other videos. Thank you and goodbye.